Hey everyone, today I'm going to give you 5 tips for planted tank substrate. Tip number 1. You actually don't need substrate for your planted tank. Take a look at this particular planted tank. All the plants that you see here, those are epiphyte. Epiphyte means a type of plants that doesn't need substrate. These are fern, bucephalandra, anubias and moss. What I did, I simply tied the plants on rocks or on driftwood and I kept it there. As you can see, it has no substrate, this particular tank. Only substrate that you have here is a thin layer of sand which is kept only for aesthetically pleasing purpose. Even if I remove this sand, it will not have any impact on the overall plant growth. Tip number 2. ADA Amazonia. If you have heard about this particular substrate, then it is the most commonly used planted tank substrate across the world. Now the problem with ADA Amazonia is this is a very nutrient rich substrate. If you use ADA Amazonia, then for initial 3 weeks at least you have to do 50% water change on daily basis. Also, these initial 3 months I will suggest you not to put any livestock in your planted tank. It's simply because ADA Amazonia leaches a huge amount of ammonia in water column. So if you're not changing water on regular basis, you will end up with a planted tank full of algae. Tip number 3. This is also related to ADA Amazonia. If you are planning to use ADA Amazonia, then I'll definitely recommend you to use ADA fertilizer. Planted tank substrate and fertilizer go hand in hand. You normally should not mix and match in this particular case. ADA Amazonia is a nutrient rich substrate. It has huge amount of nutrients in the substrate and as a result it leaches good amount of substrate in the water column as well. So the fertilizer needs to be adjusted based on that. And that's why if you use all ADA products, your plants will thrive. If you try to mix and match, then you must have that knowledge and you must know what exactly the amount of nitrate you have in your planted tank water, and accordingly you can adjust your fertilizer dosing. Tip number 4. Don't blindly use substrate in your planted tank without knowing much about it. Just because you saw someone using that substrate, do not simply pour that thing in your planted tank. Do some round of research. There are 2 types of substrate in planted tank world. One is active substrate, the kind of substrate which holds nutrient and which contains good amount of nutrient like ADA Amazonia. And there is another type of substrate which is called inert substrate. In case of inert substrate, I'll give you example of Sikkim fluoride black, which is inert but it is high in CEC and AEC. CEC stand for cation exchange capacity and AEC stand for anion exchange capacity. So your fertilizer regime will depend highly on what kind of substrate you are using. If you use ADA Amazonia, then you have to follow lean fertilizing method and you have to dose less amount of fertilizer in your planted tank. On the other hand, if you use substrate like Sikkim fluoride black, then you have to dose heavily in your planted tank because the substrate itself doesn't contain any nutrient. It will absorb nutrients from the water column as it has high CEC and AEC, and the fertilizer or the nutrients will be made available to plant's root. Tip number 5, and this is the final tip, that is many hobbyists use potting soil or gardening soil in planted tank. It is absolutely fine to use that as long as you're capping it correctly with either gravel or sand. If you're not capping the soil correctly, then if it comes in contact with water, it will leach a huge amount of nutrients in water column and you will have nothing but a tank filled with algae. So it's absolutely good to use potting soil for your planted tank, but you must know the husbandry. You must know how exactly it is done. So for beginners, I'll definitely advise you not to try that one. For the time being, for today, that will be all from my side. I hope you like this video. If yes, then please feel free to subscribe and share this video with your friends and family. Thank you. Take care. Bye.